Hello and good Woch. Hashem, Shabbos Zachor, tremendously, all of them is silly to say. It's tremendously significant Shabbos. Purim is coming. And so, B'ezrat Hashem, Monday night, we will dedicate this year to Purim, I think. Yeah, I'll do that. So let's start with Sipurey Baal Shem Tov, and then all the tzaddikim, and continue with Hashem, the biography of Rabbeinu Ariza, and B'ezrat Hashem, then we'll go to Sichos Haran for this week. It is said that Rabbi Mordechai of Chernobyl, Mordechai of Chernobyl was the son of Rabbi Nachum of Chernobyl, who was a great student of the Maggid of Mizrich, and Mordechai of Chernobyl was considered to be his son was going to be tzaddik ador, Skan tzaddik ador. He was the eldest tzaddik of his generation. He had a lot of chassidim, a lot of towns, made him their maggid, and amongst his talmidim was so dov of Volodnik that they said that whoever touches the handle of his grave, there's a mausoleum on top of his Beit Hatzion. Whoever touches will already get the Yeshua, and Avan Dov from Average. Still, while he was still alive, differently than during the life of Mordechai of Chernobyl, unlike the Jewish Ashkenazi Messiah, people used to call their children after them. And he said that he was by the Tzina Baal Shem HaKodesh, in the winter days when there was a lot of snow and very, very cold, and he stood by the Tzin without shoes and without socks. They asked him how can he withstand standing like that in such a cold weather. He said that he's standing on a strip of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore he does not feel the cold. Rabbeinu Nachman of Breslov said, the Baal Shem Tov's Tzion, it's very, very good to be there. He says, tzaddikim Yeshuaretz, the tzaddikim amitim, they inherit Eretz Yisrael, and their gravesite is holy with the sanctity of Eretz Yisrael mamash. Well, it's rather the tzaddikim amitim, like the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbeinu, that their tzion is holy in the kedusha of Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's a big tikkun for Gamabris. Rabbeinu Nachman Breslev was used to, he was a boy, was mamash in his younger years, to run every time to the tzina of Hashem HaKadosh, to ask him, to beg him, to help him, to get close to Hashem Yisbarach. And the time that he was sitting in the house of his father-in-law, when he wanted to speak to the Baal Shem Tov, he would go to Kehila Smilo, that was close to his father-in-law's house, and Rabbeinu Nachman came to the kever of a very famous tzaddik, Rabbi Shaya from Yanov, and he made him a shliach to let the Baal Shem Tov know what it is that he needed. Ad kan schusat again aleinu. That's the story of Baal Shem Tov. At Hashem, this week, and we will continue against Hashem. So this is a story about three people who inherited Olam Haba in one fell swoop, in 1 hour. There was a town, there was what they call a Wasserträger, person that brings the water with pails on his shoulder. The houses didn't have any running water, of course. And everybody knew that he was a very, very simple person. When this person passed away, during the Shiva of his passing, he came, to the Rav of the town, not in a dream. The Rav was alive. And he asked the Rav that he's asking him, since he has left an almana and her children, and they are, the penniless, to put an eye on them and to give him parnasa because they didn't have enough. So the Rav asked him, said, this is extremely unusual. The first 7 days, the whole Indian of Shiva, Shloishim, and the 12 months for Niftar is not for the family, but for the Niftar. The 7 days of the Shiva are very, very difficult for the Niftar. The first 3 days are even more difficult, but the first 7 days, extremely, extremely difficult. And for Niftar to come to somebody during the Shiva, he must have been something absolutely extraordinary. It means there's no judgment on him. So he says, you're still in the Shiva to your P'tira. How can you, be free from any judgment? Just to worry about the parnasa of your household. How can this be? So he told him, I'm a Ben Olam Haba. I have Olam Haba, no problem. I already had my entry card. So he said, how were you zeichet to this? So he said, I had one midah tova, that whenever it is that I brought, the barrels or whatever it is of water, I also had a small jug with water, and from this I would add on top of the big jugs, and I used the small jug in order to fill whatever water was spilt along the way. So for sure I bring a full jug. It says, but it was a good thing. And it says, but it didn't help me that much. He says, but I had another thing that midah tova. Every single week I was very busy in my work from morning to night. And I mamash did not speak with my people in my household all week long. Erev Shabbos, I always try to have 2 zehuvim, 2 gold coins, bought some good things, a little mashke to drink. Every Shabbos we ate and we drank, me and the people of my family, and we were happy all Shabbos long, they consider this to be another midah teva for me. But also, this is not the thing that really made it. But one time, in Erev Shabbos, I had great yisurim until I was able to put together the two zehuvim. And when I got them, I rushed home. And while I was there, I heard a crying coming from a house. And I found a woman there sitting on the floor with all her sons. Everybody's crying, like, and somebody was died. So I asked them, what is it? What happened? So the woman said, why shouldn't I care? Now I had every Shabbos, at least for candles and for one bread and Haran. And now it's almost time to light candles, and I don't have even a penny. So I gave her the 2 golden pennies that I had, and Baruch Hashem, the crime became a celebration. I said, this woman, the neshama nifta tells the Rav, this woman was the Gilgul of the neshama of Esther Amalka. Sichos again, Allah called Israel coming up, and the reason that she had to be misgalgal was once she went in the upper realms, she came to Heichal, and she wanted to go inside and see what's happening there. And the guard at the door told her, "You have no permission to go in there." So she shouted at him, and he wouldn't listen to her. So she went complaining to Beis Shalmala on this guard. So they told her, this Heichal, this incredible hall, is a hall of extremely poor people. And being that Esther has never ever tasted poverty, she had no permission to get in there. It's only if she's willing to incarnate again and taste what it feels like to be extremely poor, then she'll have her shus to get into this hall. And she agreed. And it was paskened on her. She used to come in the Gilgal, and most of her days passed with tremendous poverty. And when the tzaddik served Erev Shabbos, they already decreed Mishamayim that that's it's enough. She has suffered enough. Immediately afterwards, after this Shabbos, she passed away. And she went to Madrego. And the fact that I gave her the money to give her chayas, they also paskin on me, says this niftar, that he is ben Olam Haba, and he passed away immediately after this woman passed away. Then the Rav understood that he's a ben Olam Haba, and he took care of the people of his household. The second, he says there was a great Rav that lived in the house, that on the road next to his house was the road where all the people, all the niftarim in town passed by his house. His minhag was that he was Mekayim mitzvahs levayas hames in every niftar. And afterwards he stopped, and he would not be love everyone, but just every once in a while. Then there was a very honorable person that passed away. He was a Lamdan and Nadvan, very generous, and had very elchis children. They were wealthy, and practically all the people in town went after him. But the Rav wouldn't go. So listen, he's still the Rav of the town, so people were very deichaz. They didn't say anything. Afterwards, the doctor of the town passed away. That was not being considered like anything special by the people of the town. But the Rav did go to be Malavahim. So the people told the Rav, this we don't get. That person who was so honorable and was a London and wealthy and with good children, whatever it is, He didn't go to his Levaya. To this, he was a tzaddik and he was a Mabam Sintovim. He didn't go into Levaya. This doctor was doctor of those days. It's not what doctors today. It was a simple person. He went to his Levaya. So he said, I have to tell you the truth, says the Rav. I had great isurim from this tirda that I had to go to all the Levites whenever it is that they came along. So it happened that my shamish, my servant, was passed away. So I asked him before he passed away that every time he will come and let me know which nifter is Bein Olam Haba and which is not. And he lets me know. That's why I go very seldom. Now, about your father, I can't tell you why he doesn't have Olam Haba immediately. Not Hashem. Himself he will have, but not immediately. But about the doctor, I can tell you. So there's a very wealthy person here in this area that lost all his money and became impoverished. And the man and the woman and the wife have decided between them that even if they would die of hunger, they will not ask anything from anyone. That became known to a very wealthy person. It used to be the partner of this man. And he came and he said, when we were partners, we made, we took loans, we gave loans, whatever. So we were, lending money one from another to another. So why don't you lend some money from me? And this is my advice. I'm going to, give an order that all the stores that I own, foodstuffs and all the other merchandise, they're going to give you money, you write it down on credit. And I will pay everything. Because Baruch Hu should help you, pay me. And they agreed, and he took from the stores whatever it is he needed. So the Maisa is that rich person went for his mischa, and his idea was that on his way that during the 6 weeks, he would be away for 6 weeks, and he ordered all the people that work for him in those stores for the next 6 weeks to give everything on his own cheshbon. It so happened that this soicher has stayed an extra week. In the 7th week, when he went to the stores to get the foodstuff, they wouldn't give him anymore because the rich person says only 6 weeks. He didn't have anything for Shabbos. And Friday, Erev Shabbos in the morning, again, he and his wife swore to one, they're not going to ask anyone for anything. And this doctor, Erev Shabbos Kodesh, was in the bathhouse, and he fainted. So they took him to a house close by, so he would rest a while, and they took him to the house of this poor person. When he felt a little better, he went here and there, and didn't say anything. Preparation for Shabbos Kodesh, and he asked him, well, "What is it? How come you don't have anything for Shabbos?" She didn't say anything. She just cried, but she wouldn't answer him. So the doctor understood what was going on. He says, I'm going to lend you money. And I'm going to lend you all the money I have, and you're going to take care, you're going to buy everything for Shabbos Kodesh. And whatever it is that's left, you buy a little bromfen for yourself. A little, a drink. And tomorrow Shabbos Kodesh I will come to be happy with you. Now, in Shemaim, they already knew that this poor man and his wife hadn't eaten for 2 days since then. And if it wasn't for the money of the doctor, they would have died of hunger. This doctor was Mechaya 2 souls in Israel, in the Paskan that he is a Bein Olam Haba. And since he wasn't a very sophisticated person, They were worried that Chas v'Chalila maybe he will spoil or lose it. So they paskin that he will pass away immediately. And he says, and my Shamer says, the Rav let me know. So now you understand that I did good. This is why I did, and I went to see him. And the third story from these three people who were zeicher to Elam Haba in one fell swoop was a town. There was a boy, that young man, that all the people at the time used to call him Itzikal Shegitz. Itzikal, and he died suddenly. He wasn't a very refined person, as far as the people at the time concerned. It was a balaver. Shegitz means it's like a balaver, and they buried him with bizoyon, and in the morning, right after the day of his burial, they found him lying on a kever outside. So the people of the town were joking that even the ground cannot stand him. So the third morning, they found him again lying on top of his grave. And at that time, he was seen, he appeared to the Rav of the town. And he says, don't make the mistake of thinking that the earth cannot cover me, cannot stand me. It's just that they buried me with great disdain, and I am a ben olam haba, and I want you to bury me with kavod. Somebody in the sun will become the ben olam haba. So the Rav asked him, how you zeicher to be in ben olam haba? So he told him, I walked from one village to another, and away from the road, I saw a wagon standing in the middle of the field, and a great cry coming from the wagon. I went there and I found a Yid standing by the wagon. I said, what is this? He says, me and my wife, this is one is laying in the wagon, and we haven't eaten for 2 days. Now she needs to give birth, and there's no maiden wife, there's no midwife, and my wife is so exhausted she cannot even give birth. So I gave her a big piece of mizonis, a little bit of yashin and some jam that I had, and she ate, and she had strength, and she gave birth to 2 children, and it became a big noise in the Shemayim, and I was mekayim 3 nefashos, and they passed on to be olam haba. But again, in olam haba, they knew who I was, and they were afraid that I will lose it because of my deeds. So it took me to this world immediately. When the Rav heard it, the Rav ordered the people of the town to beg his forgiveness and to bury him with the appropriate kavod. And this is what they did. There's a lot of Musa Askel that comes out of these 3 stories. And now, with your permission, we will turn to the biography of Rabbeinu Ariza. So we were talking about until now about Rabbi Betzalel, the Shita, the Kubetzis, who was the teacher of Rabbeinu Ariza in the yeshiva of the Ritva. And I'm sorry, of the Ridvaz, not the Ritva, of course not. The Radvaz, sorry, David ben Zimran. Now, so we're talking about Rabbi Betzalel Ashkenazi, the Baal Shita Mekubetzis, was the Ravi of Ariza. He was Osik B'Torah together with his Talmud, with Ariza. And the Arizal went in the ways of his Rebbe. They were both making this Baidadus. They were completely divorced from this world. They were, hardly eating, and their work is, just avodas Hashem. Torah is their life. And as we said before, Arizal had no parnasa problems, thanks to his uncle, his father-in-law. But Rabbi Mordechai Francis said this is not enough. He took upon himself also to sustain Rabbi Tzadok Ashkenazi and his household, so he can continue doing avodas Hashem together with Rabbeinu Arizal. For 7 years, Arizal learned Shas and Poskim Chavrusa with Rabbi Tzadok Ashkenazi Shittim Kobetzis, and he was Ma'amas this Derech Halimud, Precious and Kedusha. And as it was going on, he was delving deeper and deeper in the Nigla. And little by little, he started to get into the parts of Kabbalah to the Nister. But Arizal was not the only one to gain from this Chavrusa. He was a Talmud Machkim. He with his kashas, he made his Rebbe clever and Rabbi, smarter and wiser. And Ritzal enjoyed this tzavsa, this chavrusa, and he made him part of his great magnum opus, the Sichos Mekabetzis, and they wrote together the Sichos Mekabetzis on Masechet Zvachim. By the way, Sichos Zvachim has never been printed. This is in the Shem Gedolim to Rav Achido. He says that Rabbi Aaron Alfandari, there was a Sichos Mekabetzis on Masechet Zvachim, and used to learn it. And over there, it is said in every chidush who said it, Rabbi Tzalel or Ariza. However, unfortunately, this book was burnt together with all the gnozim, all all the sfarim of Rabbi Aaron Fandari in the big fire that raged in the town of Izmir in Turkey. And besides this shita, Rabbi Tzalel and Rabbi Yitzchok, was Rabbeinu Arizal, have edited together Hagoes on Sifrei Arif and Mefoshim on the Ran. During this 7 years, when they were learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael, and the Ritvaz left Egypt, and he came to Yerushalayim. He went to Yerushalayim, as we said before. And his place was taken up by Tzalel Ashkenazi, this great student. And they had the same idea that they will continue to learn together. He said a limud together, but the Kadosh Baruch Hu had different plans. In the year, and the 7th year of their joint learning, the Nagid, Rabbi Tajir passed away, and that had a great influence on the life of Tzalel Ashkenazi. What is a Nagid? What's the pshat Nagid? At the head of the Kehillah of the Egyptian Jews, for many generations, there was one top persons called the Nagid, or the Arabs called him Rais al-Yahud, the president of the Jews, the head of the Jews. His job was to represent the Jewish affairs by the government. He was responsible, for different kind of order, laws, whatever it is in the Kehillah. He made rules for the Kehillah, and under his supervision was also appointing Rabbonim and Dayanim. He was the one who was in charge of collecting the taxes, the Kehillah, and he's the one that saw, the treasurer of the Kehillah, that the money will be spent for the benefit of the Kehillah. And so this particular job of Nagid in Egypt was known since the days of the Geonim. These are the Chochmei Israel after the sealing of the Talmud, after Rav. And for generations, this job was fulfilled by Gdolei Israel, a tremendously famous, with the Shemaim and Baal and Chesed. Now, the Nagid was chosen by the Jewish people, but the affirmation was received through, a governmental decree. After Egypt was conquered by the Ottomans, the Turks did not cancel out this job, but they changed the way that the person that was the Nagid, that he was chosen. The person that was voted in was no longer voted by the Jews that live in Egypt, but he was appointed by the government in Istanbul, and he was sent to Egypt to become. He was appointed in Istanbul and was sent to Egypt. Rabbi Tajir, as we said, he was carrying the job of Nagid the way that it used to be from generations. He had tremendous covet to the Rabbanim of Egypt, and whatever he said, he listened to them. And after he passed away, another person was appointed, a person by the name of Yaakov ben Chaim. So the first Shabbos that he came, the new Nagid, after Musaf, delegation of the Dayanim, Rabbanim, Parnasei Kehillah, with Rabbi Tzal Ashkenazi, went to the place, the what they call the mayoral mansion, Gracie Mansion, I think it's called in New York. The Nugget, the Nugget had from the government of Turkey gave it to him, and they wanted to present to him, all the heads of the Kehillah, the Rabbanim, the Parnasim, and tell them, how are they doing things, what they're doing. Now, this Yaakov ben Chaim was wearing these clothing of the some kind of was official clothing that he was a great disappointment. He received them, with great disdain, a total opposite of all the Negidim before him. He saw the Negidus as an achievement in a career in the Turkish government. And he decided he's going to show the people in Egypt who's boss. He didn't see himself as the one who was appointed for the benefit of the Kehillah, but the one that the Kehillah is under him, they're going to do whatever it is that he is saying. Rabbi Tzal Ashkenazi stood in front of the delegation, and he was severely, he reacted very severely. He could not overcome, the way the candidates, the lack of the respect that was blatant in the behavior of the new Nagid. And he scolded him, for treating without the Chachamim of Mitzrayim with lack of respect. And this Nagid became offended, and he, opened up his mouth, and so when Ashkenazi saw the great offense against Kovod the Torah of the Yaakov, Ashkenazi came against him, and he put him in Haran. The Din Asamed is Mevazat Tamid Chochem, and he went out of his palace, and after him, everybody else went. This Yaakov ben Chaim felt very humiliated, it didn't even dawn on him that he was acting stupidly. And he was being chutzpaniak, that he should go. And Adobe decided that he is going to take revenge of his wounded pride, all the Jews in Egypt, especially Reb Tzadok Ashkenazi. So what did he do? He went to the Pecha. He was the governor of Egypt, and told him, in dark colors what was going on, how the Rav, put him down, and how he was mevazel the Malchus. And not only this, but he told him that the rabbi said that Jewish should not listen to what the Pecha said. The Nagid is his appointee, as it were. And he is officially appointed by the government in Turkey, and any kind of slight that is accorded to him, it's like Merida Malchus. And when Rabbi Betzalel heard about this is now to be mulching, to snitch like this, it's the only avera that there is in Shulchan Aruch, that there is a punishment of Onish Misa, is Mesira, is Malshinus. Immediately he went on Sunday. He went to the palace of the governor, and then at Nach, he had a Bible in his hand. People, his household, they tried to prevent him from going. The governor was a hard person. Maybe he's upset. Maybe he's mad. Who knows what's going to happen to the Rav? But the Tzadok Ashkenazi will not be swayed. We cannot let this go. There's a danger for all the Jews of Egypt. It's absolutely essential that he makes the truth clear to the government. So he went, and he came to the palace of the Pecha, of the Pasha, whatever you want to call it. Surprisingly, he was received immediately. He stood before the government. He told them, "There's no doubt that my master, the Pecha, the Pasha, whatever, that from the day that our Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, we no longer have any Malchus. We're exiled from our land. We are very, very careful that none of our people will ever call himself a king. There's no authority to be monarchs except to the people who rule the land, that allow with the chesed to the Jews to live amongst them during the exile." Here, said the Rav to the Pasha, this functionary, it was sent to us from Istanbul, Yaakov ben Chaim. He took this rulership to himself. He calls himself a Nagid. This is a title that is akin to a king and a ruler, because in the olden days, Malch Yisrael were called Negidim, and Rabbi Betzalel opened the Tanakh he had in his hand, and Pasuk Meforish, how Shaul HaMelech was anointed by Shmuel. He says, "Halo meshachecho Hashem al achlosoi." Hashem has anointed you on his nachlo, the nogid, to be a nogid. We should know, my master the Pecha. Okay, we are standing before this new functionary, me and all my friends from delegation from the Jews of Egypt, and we saw that he is trying to rule over us. Shalom Kadin, I spoke to him very gently, very nicely, that he should not take upon himself this authority which does not belong to him. This is completely usher, on us from the other exile. But he refused, and he was fresh. That's why I had to banish him and excommunicate him, not to be allowed to come Israel. That's why I came to you now, to let my master and master the government of Egypt you should do whatever you think is right. When the Pecha heard the divrei emes, he was immediately, he took away this title of Nagid that was given to Yaakov ben Chaim, and from that moment on, there was no longer a Nagid for the Jews of Egypt. So instead of that, the person who was responsible for the Jews, vis-a-vis the government, was called Chilbi. His authority was shrunk only for money. The only thing that he would do is just collect taxes that the Jews had to pay for the Pecha and the people in Istanbul. However, the spiritual inyanim were now the business of the Beis Din of the Jews of Egypt, and his friends. The Beis Din of it, they the one appointed the Rabbanim and so forth and so on. So Yaakov ben Chaim, one day to the next, instead of being a Nagid, he became a Chilbi. He was filled with he was angry. He was angry. He decided he's going to take his revenge, and he went against Tzal Ashkenazi. He persecuted him any way he could until not only this, but the people of Egypt were also upset that the stature of Nagid was no longer there. They understood, that Tzal Ashkenazi, was fighting for their good, but still, they were still upset, that the outcome was not what they hoped for. So because of this, the entire atmosphere was spoiled because of the persecutions of the Chilbi, and Tzal Ashkenazi left Egypt and went to settle in Yerushalayim. After the death of Yaakov ben Chaim, Tzal Ashkenazi went to Egypt for a little while. Then he came back to Yerushalayim, where he lived until he passed away. His friend from his youth, the holy poet Rimsal Najara, called him Ish Elokim Kadosh of Tzal Ashkenazi, Ish Elokim Kadosh, Askam, Rav Paolim, kind of a Noikim, Matzil Ashukim Mani Dogol. From the responses from Egypt, we find that both in Egypt and Eretz Yisrael, he was making incredibly important rules and regulations for the people. And for whatever it is that has to do with us, which is the biography of Rabbeinu Ariza, after Betzalel left Egypt, obviously after whatever was going on, Ariza no longer had a chavrusa, and he continued to learn on his own. Bezat Hashem will continue next week with where this led him. Bezat Hashem. And now, with your permission, we'll just take a look at this week's Sicha. And here we go. Rabbeinu also spoke about from the great embarrassment, the busha, that he had, that he would be embarrassed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mamash would feel this embarrassment on his face. I mean, he would blush, like somebody who's embarrassed from his friend. And he felt that his face was reddening, like people who are embarrassed with no shidduch. And we already said the great busha and yira that was Rabbeinu's face that has never been seen. The Rav HaKodesh Moreno Rav Nachum of Chernobyl, the father of Ramot of Chernobyl, saw him. Rabbeinu was very, very young. And he was startled by the immense yira on his face. And he said that what he saw there, that which was said, so that Hashem's fear will be on your face, said you shall never sin. So this can be seen openly on Rabbeinu. This particular he said this Sicho when he met with he had a friend, a chaver, that learned together with him while they were by the Maggid of Mizrich, and his friend was the Tirovetz Maggid. They learned by the Maggid of Mizrich, and the Baal asked him to give him a skama on his siddur. The siddur Baal has a lot of halachas that he gave him and they would spend time by each other's house once a year. One year he went to the Nachum of Chernobyl. One day Nachum Chernobyl would come to him, and Teovetz Magid became a chassid of Rabbeinu Nachman from Breslov when he was over 80 years old. And Rabbi Nachman at the time was in his late teens. He was 19. And he became his chassid. And he said to Moch of Chernobyl, "No, what do you say about my Rebbe?" So I told him this thing. I saw him when I was a little kid. The Maisa that happened when he saw him, that Rabbeinu was, I think it was 4 or 5, something like that. And he was in Meshibosh. And Noach Chernobyl was there. And we said the story once that the boy was playing there. It looks like he was playing. And a wagon, chariot, whatever, coach was driving very quickly, and the wagon driver had the whip, and he was, he whipped the horses, and as the whip flew in the air, it hit a little bird and it killed it, and it continued running. The bird fell on the ground. So the little boy, the Joel told the story. So Rabbi Nachman, the little boy, 4 or 5 years old, comes over to the bird, looks at it, and said, "It was worth your while." And Noach Chernobyl said he was shocked. He says, "This little boy sees in the world of the neshamas. The Inyan that is more to negate to us, we're coming, Mr. Shem, close to Purim. Year is a year that has to do with a person having in his head the Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem in the grandeur, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbeinu says in Torah Samach, this year has to be Yiras Harayimos Chochma Bina Das. The Yiras Harayimos is like a puzzle, like a riddle. Somebody asks you a riddle, and he says, "What do you say about this?" Says, "I don't know. This is the Chochma. You know there's an answer, but you don't know what it is. So what you do is, you take the riddle in your mind, and you wave this way, that way. You're turning this way, that way. Until you get like, the beginning of a yarn, the edge, and you start, I get something, and slowly open it up until you get it. Wow, you got the answer for the riddle. And then this is written to the memory, the Das. Now it's written to you, you save it to hard disk, whatever it is, of your Das. We all know of the greatness of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu Melech Haaretz Kavoidoi. Not Kavoidoi, but you're sitting here watching what I'm telling, listening to what I'm telling you, and me, and you, and the media that brings that message to you. And everything, the fact that you're present right now where you are, the way you are, everything is being created right now from nothing by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the thing is that what you need to do, I mean, is that we all know that we all talk the talk, but somehow we don't walk the walk. Why? We'll still have various situations where it's okay. Now we are connected, and we're not that much connected. So if we're not connected, maybe I'll go ahead and do something else. This is not how it works. The thing is that you have to go around in your mind and look into the greatness of Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ask Kadosh Baruch Hu to help you, because you understand the minute Kadosh Baruch Hu takes off the blinders, the awe is automatic. It's automatic. We said that Yiras Ha'inish is when you're driving with your family to a picnic and you get out of the car and you see, like, half a kilometer, half a mile away, you see a lion. So all the time when he gets back into the car and drives away, that's Yiras Ha'inish. You don't get yourself into trouble. Yiras Ha'inish is the lion is 10 feet from you. There's nowhere to run. Even if you have a gun in your hand, you wouldn't be able to lift it up and shoot it. You are so petrified. You're frozen. This is Yiras Ha'inish. This is what we're talking about here. That Rabbeinu had this kind of yira, this kind of awareness of the great HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he was blushing, he was shaking when he was sat by a table saying a Torah. The entire table was shaking. Rabbeinu said if he would, take the veil off his yira, just his yira, people won't be able to stand around his house at all. It would be so petrifying. So somebody asked when we learned this in the Shir, so what do you do? That's the way you want to live your life, totally petrified. The answer is, when you get this Yiras Shamayim through his Beidadus, through asking Kodesh Baruch Hu, through working it in your mind, doing mitzvahs, keeping away from the things you shouldn't do, you're building yourself kelim that you will be able to handle it. I mean, it's like somebody who is working like in the palace of the king. I mean, the awe is immense, but you're already part of the palace, part of the staff, part of the entourage. You have a job to do. I mean, it's a different decision. Would you rather, be by the palace of the king? You're much better off being a hobo lying in lying in the streets, in the gutter. Well, this is what we're doing. We are in the streets, we're in the gutter. We'd rather not see or not doing what we need to do in order to see. And the game is you work on it. Baruch Hashem, now we have Purim. Purim is the beginning, the preparation for Pesach. Rabbeinu says a Maisa. Once the Melech Shegozor Shmad, one of the Sipurey Maisius, the king that decreed Shmad, that Yidden Chas Chalila will become going, that won't be able to keep the Torah mitzvahs. And because of that, some of the people that wanted to remain Jews left the country. The other ones were Marranos, they were hiddenly, they were Jews, but outside they didn't look like they weren't keeping their Judaism anymore. The whole story goes, whatever it is, that it's the Marranos that ultimately brought the Yeshua. We are all Anusim, we are all Marranos. A Marrano is somebody that our own deeds, the way that we behave, is as if we do not want to keep Yiddishkeit. But, a little bit here, a little bit there. No, let's not. But deep inside us, hidden, we want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the Indian of Mordechai and Esther. They were Marranos, we were forced. Once we said, listen, we have klipas Haman Amalek that is forcing us to behave the way we're not supposed to behave as Jews. But deep inside, we want to. Hashem, that will lead us, Mitzvah Hashem, to Pesach, when we all, B'ezrat Hashem, will go free. B'ezrat Hashem, Bli Neder. Monday night, we'll have a shir talking about Purim, B'ezrat Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem, hopefully, we'll go to sleep immediately afterwards. Wake up, make his Beidah dos, B'ezrat Hashem, Daven Vasikin, Hashem Yazol. B'ezrat Hashem should have a Purim Sameach to all of us, and a lot of bracha and atzlacha, B'ezrat Hashem.